Hey, how's it going? Thank you for stopping by, checking out my YouTube page, checking out my YouTube channel. I said I was going to start this DTF series, and I was going to kind of break it down, and I was going to try to make a video once a day. And when I really kind of start putting the nuts and bolts of this, I was really kind of like, wow, I didn't realize how big of a topic I kind of was taking on, and how I really had to split it up. And then in the midst of me kind of thinking creatively how I'm going to break this series down, I started just getting bombarded with questions, and I think that I needed to take a step back because I made the assumption that most people are aware what DTF is, right? So this video is actually going to be what is DTF, and I guess frequently asked questions on DTF, and then this particular video in itself is going to kind of break down into other topics, to maybe cover one specific thing more in detail, but to kind of tell you what it is. So without further ado, what is DTF? DTF is actually a printer that will take an image and print it directly on a piece of film. So hopefully it doesn't blur it out. Something like, yeah, it sure is. Something like that. Okay, now notice how, sorry guys, notice how right here it's clear. Sorry, it's because I have this stupid thing in the background, the Chicago flag. But anyways, you see how that's clear? And the other part's white. So where the white is, that's actually where it has this like a chemical compound that's on it. When the clear is, I did that intentionally to show you, the difference. Okay, so this is it basically feels like we're all in grade school and we used overhead sheets. That's pretty much what it feels like. Okay, so you're gonna have an overhead sheet, and you're gonna, there it is. And most sheets are gonna have two sides. They're gonna have a shiny side, and then they have a matte side. And the matte side is the side that actually has the chemical compound on it that your ink sticks to. See the difference right here. Some, I would say, I said most. Some transfers are actually going to have, they would actually be like a double matte, but that doesn't mean you can print on both sides. They just are being cheaper in the finishings, I guess, and without a shiny side. The only downside I really see to that is that you see a lot of these people printing and they're online and they're like, what did I do wrong? And they didn't realize that they printed on the wrong side of the sheet, and that's why, because it's not absorbing the ink, it's kind of just rolling off. So by having a matte side, it really makes it that you can't confuse one or the other. There are different thicknesses in the actual film. I've seen some films are a lot thicker than others. Some films are a lot thinner than others. So do I say, is there a difference between the thicker and thinner? Yes, absolutely. I would say the thinner printers, the thinner films, that's where a lot of printers having problems feeding. And you'll see all these posts, people, I keep getting a page printer error, or I can't get my page to load, and people are putting paper, like basically wedging it behind it to kind of lift that paper up so that the printer grabs it and pulls it on. So that's one thing that I would say definitely that, by having a thinner film would cause a problem. The other thing that I did notice is that there's definitely a huge difference in quality assurance, right? So some of the cheaper films, what I've seen is, okay, see how I showed you this, and you can see in the center how it's white. I'm showing you intentionally. What that basically is when they rolled up the film, they put a piece of tape on there so that the roll won't unroll. And when I pulled it off, it literally pulled off the chemical compound, whatever that ink is adhering to. So I'm bringing that up because what I noticed is that some of these films, when you look at it, see how that looks like a perfect frost, right? It almost looks like frosting. Like you can't see me through that at all, right? And then some of the cheaper films, you're gonna see also that it doesn't look as evenly distributed, and also scratches a lot easier. So if I was to go like this, you'd almost see it. You can't even tell you did that. And some of the cheaper films, if you actually scratch it, then it's actually removing that. And when removing that, then your ink's not going to stick. And you're like, big deal, I'm not going to scratch with my nail. No, it's just, the other thing is just in storage, with all these, with it rubbing something or even just feeding it, if it's real cheap, it seems like it's easily scratched, and then your inks or your solvents are not sticking to it. That's definitely a problem. And then the other thing is that quality assurance, like I'm going back to, I've saw excellent film. Like, man, this is a great thickness. This is a great chemical compound. The way this is made, my ink is really working well with this, but the quality assurance is not there. So in the middle of my print, I'm getting hair. Now you can see my hair, right? I don't have much hair. I mean, I'm pretty much a 00 on the bottom at all times, and maybe a 1.5 on top. I need a haircut right now, but so there's not a lot of hair falling off my head during productions, right? And I'll get a long black strand hair in the middle of my film, or I'll just see hair, and see. So now when I all of a sudden out of that roll, I see hair. If that gets in my ink, I got to stop. It just messes everything up, because then the other thing is that if I don't stop and it gets pulled into the printer, I mean, it's just a mess. So I've also seen just little like clumps of debris. I don't know if it's the white whatever that is that's being put on this. So sometimes, like I said, I want to the guy that I normally get my films from and say, hey, so and so's offering me the rolls of film at this price, can you match them? And I sent him this Excel spreadsheet so they know the company's coming from, can you match it? And he said no. And you know what, that's fine, but it can't hurt to ask, right? And at the end of the day, he knows that he has a superior product, and that's why he's like, nah, then that's cool, just buy your ink from me and buy that from them or whatever, and I was like, I'm gonna just stick what I'm doing. I was just feeling you out, see what you thought. I did try their film, and and it was crazy, because it was like in the beginning of the roll it was crappy, and then like towards the middle of the roll I was just like, screw it, man. If I had to waste 6 feet and I save $18 a roll, that's a lot, when you're buying 10, 20 rolls at a time, you know what I mean? But then it just you're not paying attention to printing, you're just letting it run, and you're getting garbage on the film, or you're getting debris on the film, or hair on the film. So to me, the little bit that I was saving wasn't worth it, right? Because now I got to break the printer down, because I don't want to make sure nothing's stuck in there. I got to pull more film through, cut that off, throw that away. I got to stop production, and then get everything up back and running, and it's running smooth again. So the old saying is, you get what you pay for, right? So what is my points on film? Thickness. You actually do want a thicker film. The matte, how it looks, you do want it so that it looks like you can't actually feel anything on it at all. And it looks like that's solid grade, like you can't see me through it. Like, see me through there, but you can't see me through it. Maybe a silhouette, but if you can see right through it, it looks real, or you can feel like a grittiness on it. I don't feel nothing at all. Like, it just feels super smooth. If you can feel that, that's probably not as good. And then the other thing is too, is you see a lot of people, they're selling these kits that you can put on your shaker or dryer or whatever you want to call it, your oven, however you're cooking these films, and it's actually taking the fumes, and cleaning them up and cleaning the air that's actually being exposed in the room that you're working in. And I have noticed that, like, the film that I'm using right now, so when I print on it, so different printers are the actual film is gonna come out differently, right? So some printers, the film's gonna come out straight, and some films, I'm like, stupid thing. So the film's gonna come in a downward direction. So when the film comes in a downward direction, the ink tends to run, right? Because it's in downward direction, versus if the print's coming straight out to you, it tends to send flat. So there's a difference and an advantage of using different types of films for that way too. The film that I'm using right now, when you print on it, it tends to absorb the ink really fast. So you want to have a high production printer, so that as it pushes it out, it's going into the dryer, right? And then also, if you're in a downward slope, that you don't have the tendency that it runs, right? But if you're printing on a printer that it's printing flat, it's coming straight out in the direction, then you don't have that as many concerns. So, what's the difference? Besides the obvious, right? Besides the obvious is powder. So if you're powdering this by hand, then you may want something that is going to stay a little wet a little longer. So you have a chance to take it off, cut it off, put it aside, and then make sure it's printing the next print, and then start putting powder on it by hand, and then put it in the oven. And then you probably have about 9 minutes to do whatever you got to do, versus like the film that I'm using right now. Like if you were gonna powder it by hand, like you better take it off the printer and powder it right away, like immediately, because otherwise you're just not gonna get enough of the powder, to go into the ink, and then you're gonna have issues with it not sticking well to the garment, or pressing 3 and 4 times to try to get stick, or having issues with coming off of the actual shirt after they wash it. So again, this is just a film. So I am going to have a video kind of go more intense on just film in particular. So what I'm going to do is I've tried 4 different manufacturers of films. So I'll go into one of each. I will give my recommendations on where I would suggest that you buy film stateside, and where I would suggest that you buy directly from a manufacturer distributor. So why would you buy stateside versus buying overseas? Okay, so keep in mind, obviously, you're going to save a ton of money buying anything that I'm talking about overseas, but you're also going to have a huge expense in shipping costs. So, for instance, I'll say ink. A bottle of ink in the United States is anywhere between 100 to 125 for a liter, right? That same bottle of ink overseas is about between $18 to $1.25. I'm sorry, $18 to $20.25 when you're buying wholesale. But the difference is you're going to probably pay a minimum of like $350 in shipping. So you got to offset the cost, right? So not everyone is prepared to spend $1,100, $1,200 minimum on ink, plus the $300 to $500 maybe on shipping. So you gotta work within your budget. So if you got to start small and work your way up, then that's what you got to do, right? That's just the name of the game. So, and these people who are in the statesides and they're selling you an ink that they bought for $20 for $125, hey, let's just be honest, they took the risk in buying it, and that product has a shelf life that they're taking the risk of being stuck with it or having to throw it away if they can't get rid of it in time. So that's that's how they make a living. So everybody's making a living. Everybody's got to feed their families. So, but yeah, so that's film. So it comes off the printer. It prints directly on this overhead sheet. It is not like sublimation. So sublimation, when you print something, this has already been pressed. The image is still on it. You see that? So when you do a DTF, let me show you an example. Let me grab something. So if I was to press that, once I press it to the garment, it's gone. It says keep calm, it's a weed cough. So once I press it, it's going to be completely off the transfer. There will be nothing there. What you will see though is like this. You see how you see where that tape took off the residue or whatever that chemical compound is there. That will be removed. You will kind of see like all of a sudden that glass etching is gone where the print was, but it'll be 100% gone. Unlike sublimation, when you take a print and you press it, this is still on there. So that's a big difference between a sublimation transfer versus a DTF transfer. There'll be nothing left. I think that kind of covers the actual sheets. I won't beat a dead horse, but that, like I said, if you want to learn more about the actual sheets itself, where I recommend you get them from, how much you should be expected to pay stateside, how much you should be expected to pay overseas, what really you should think about as far as minimum purchase quantities, things like that. I'll go more into depth just on a video in particular on film. So when I actually do that video, in the comments on this video itself, I will post a link. That way you can keep stringing along and learning, what you want to learn, and something you're not, I would suggest you watch all the videos because it'd be something you could catch. But if there's something particular you're looking for or want to, learn about, at least still have kind of an outline of how this course is going. Free, by the way. I'm not charging anyone for this. And teach you, how to go, learn from my mistakes. I'm learning all these different companies and trying different stuff and wasting a ton of money. So that's the films. Okay. So the other things I kind of briefly mentioned. I got a visitor, my son. Hello, Mijo. So I kind of mentioned is powder. So you're gonna have difficult with is powder. So you're gonna. It looks like a white powder, kind of like baking soda. And they have different grits. They'll have a fine, and they'll have a medium, and they'll have a coarse. So, and literally what that is exactly what it means. It is the how the actual powder is, how it's broken down, how it's filtered. Is it's fine, it's medium, it's coarse. So when would you want to use one or the other? Oh, I'm sorry. And there's also black and there's white. So the black powder you're supposed to be using on black garments, and white you could technically use on either. And then there is also a difference in the stretch, right? And there's white powder that's specifically not meant to stretch. Why would you want a powder that doesn't stretch? That's because if you're going to use DTF to be on wood, glass, a wall, something that's basically not a garment, right? A fixed object who's not going to move. You'd want a powder that's not going to stretch on, so that the image doesn't, come off, basically. A lot of people use medium powder when it comes to different things, and garments, because it's literally what it says, right? It's medium, so it's in between. So what do I use? Why do I use it? And what's my experience, and what made me come to that conclusion on what powders I use? I use fine. I use fine on everything. Why? Because the fine is actually fine, right? It's literally broken down in a finer compound, so it doesn't clump up as much, or you don't have it clumpy in the container you're getting. But it also since it is a finer, on a print that has small detail. If you're printing like big giant square boxes, like rest in peace shirts and things like that, you probably wouldn't notice the difference at all, with the medium or coarse, to be honest with you. But let's just say like this artwork that's above me with the skyline, there's fine little things coming off it. Anything with a fine line, anything with any fine detail, that when you're using a coarse or sometimes a medium, it just doesn't grab that. So when you go to press it, that you're having a problem with. Ricky, stop. Sorry, my son's spilling water all over the floor. Hold on. Come on. I'm spilling water all over the floor. I wasn't trying to yell. You got kids? I'm not even gonna edit that out. That's funny. But he always just wants to be with daddy. But yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah. So I was having problems if I use medium, sometimes to get away with it. And like I said, just anything with really fine detail, that's where I was having problems. Especially with anything with like really script, fancy writing, things like that. Sometimes you have an issue with it not sticking to the garment. Or when you look at the actual when you cook it, so the ink comes on the actual sheet, right, like the overhead sheet, and you could see that it looks wet, right? And then when you put the powder on top of it, whether you're doing it by hand or you're doing it in a shaker, doesn't matter. It has a matte look to it, and that's because the actual powder or the glue, what makes it stick to the garment, is absorbing into the ink, right? So, and you'll see that sometimes if you have something with really fine detail with the medium or coarse, it's just, since it's not fine powder, that it's not grasping into that ink. Okay, so the only other problem I've ever seen with fine powder, like really good quality fine powder, is sometimes on a shaker, it's blowing a lot of this powder around because they have it set too fast. Like they need to slow that down. It doesn't need to be on so fast. And at the same token, by doing that, it's creating static electricity, and then the static electricity is just causing issues with your film moving, and it's causing issues with the powder not wanting to knock off of your actual why am I lost for words? Not wanting to knock off to the actual film, because the static electricity is causing it to stick to it. So I want to show you something too, just really quick, on the actual powder. So a powder, so I think that you can get away with, to be honest with you, cheap colored ink. Now, I'll cover that, some things when I get into the ink. But the big thing is, you're going to notice it's going to be a make or break whether you have a successful print of good quality, of good washability, of durability, is your white ink and of your powder. Okay, that's it. I mean, that's where you got to spend your money, and that's where you got to do some experimenting. And the reason is because the stretchability. So let me grab a print really quick. You're going to see a lot of different people post these videos, and they're saying, I have the best ink, or I have the best transfers, and all transfers aren't the same, and they're absolutely right. And what you're going to see is that when you're putting a DTF transfer on a shirt, right? DTF compared to DTG, the reason that DTF in the past was always like kind of surpassing the quality was because when you would do a DTG print, the actual direct to garment printer was printing the ink directly onto the garment, right? So the ink was absorbing into the garment. And when you were previously doing DTF, since you were actually on an overhead sheet, film transfer, however you want to call it, and you're putting it onto the shirt, it wasn't actually like going into the shirt, it was on top of it. Make sense? Okay, so as these, and then also when you would touch the edge, you would feel a lip. And with DTG, you never had that. So that was kind of like early stages on. And no, I should take that back. I didn't even say early stages on. Because if you don't have good ink, you don't have good powder, you're still going to feel that. So if you feel that, if you're like, hey, I can feel a lip on the edge of my print, that means your supplier sucks. Or hey, that's basically why. So I want to show you something. This is just a print I did, right? I'm gonna peel this off. Hopefully I don't have to turn that background off. I think it looks cool. I'm literally peeling this off of the transfer sheet, right? It's separate. Okay. So what I want to show you is how hard it is for me to break this. I'm gonna literally stick my finger through this. Look, it still hasn't even. I'm pulling hard, like. Look at that. It's wider than. It's not even broken yet. Look at that. And where it's actually breaking is the edge where my fingers are. Look at this, and it's getting smaller and smaller. I'm trying to grab it. So you see how let's grab another piece. Look how much that is stretching. You can see the expression in my face. I'm pulling really hard. I mean, look at that. So I'm not obviously not pulling back, but I'm showing you how much it can. So the point of me doing that is that if it takes that much, for it to actually break, tear, whatever you want to call it, not being pressed on anything, then what do you think the quality is going to be like when it's actually pressed onto a shirt, right? So I'll take a same piece of that image, and all I did is I literally just took a print and I cut a section of it off so I could peel it off in front of you and stretch that, right? And I took a section of that as well, and I put it on the shirt. Some of you will recognize what that is. This is just a test shirt that I just print random stuff. And I'm going to literally take this and pull this as hard as I can. I mean, this is as hard as I can. It didn't do any damage at all. That is good powder. That is good white ink. So, no lip, can't feel it, and I couldn't ruin it if I tried. So, what did it take to me to get to that point? 3 different film manufacturers, 4 different powders, 3 different inks, 1 manufacturer, 2 different generations, and actually being kind of like a unwillingly beta tester, let them know if it sucks or not. Like, how did this batch work? What do you mean? Why are you asking me this? So powder really, really makes a big difference. So again, I'll make a section in this videos of just purely on powder. I'm going to go over the powder on who I've purchased my powder from overseas. I'm not going to say what I'm paying. I'm just going to leave contact information because I can't guarantee you're going to get the same prices that I'm getting. Because the relationship I've established with them. But I will say that anyone that I'm recommending that I've personally used, that I personally do use, I'm not getting a kickback or anything by telling you to go to them. I'm just telling you to go to them to save you the heartache of getting robbed, wasting your money, or buying crap, right? I'm just saying, like, these are reputable people. They did me a solid. They give me good prices, and they give me a good product. So I suggest you go to them. I'm not selling a list. I'm not getting kickbacks. I don't have affiliate links. I'm just doing right by someone who did right to me. Okay. So we went over the film. We went over the powder. I did a quick stress test for you. Man, I hope you really are impressed with that stretch. Look at that. Look at that. I mean, so I see a lot of these videos and people are saying, hey, they're advertising, and I've been going on these webinars that I get invited to by manufacturers. These manufacturers send me all these invites all the time, and I'm on this webinar and I say, hey, do me a favor, take your print and peel the ink off it and stretch it, and it's live. It's a live webinar, and they literally ignore my message, and I'm like, hey, take the ink, peel it off. You know why they're not gonna do it? It's because it's gonna fall apart. It's gonna tear apart horribly, and then you saw how hard I pulled on that shirt. They're not gonna do that either because they're gonna ruin the design. So that takes time. Like 19 months I have in this, beat my head against a wall. Like, I would say that DTF has made me more faithful. Honest to God, because man, I've been near tears a couple of times, not a lot of times, and I'm just praying and saying, God, please help me figure this out. And thank God, glory be to God that I was able to figure things out. Made some great connections along the way, some good friends, people that helped me and learn this process. Okay, so now we're down to ink. Okay, so I mentioned before that you can kind of go with cheaper colored, and you can't necessarily go with cheaper white. Okay, and the reason is because sometimes you buy your ink from someone that little do you know it that they may not be the same manufacturer. So I don't want to piss people off, but I got to say this. So if you don't like what I had to say, man, I'm sorry. But look, what really makes me upset about people who sell ink is this. Let's just say you're brand loyal, right? You're a Mobile One person. We're talking oil. Or you're you're a Penske person, right? Whatever it is. Or let's just say you're even, you're gas station loyal. You're a Shell person or a Mobil person. People get set in their ways and they're used to certain things. I'm that way, right? Like, I use Mobile One on all my vehicles. That's all I use, right? So if I was to go to Walmart and I walked in there, I went to buy my Mobile One oil, and I was like, oh, they don't have it. Guess what I'm going to do? Okay, I'm going to jump in the car. I'm going to go to Advanced Auto. Boop, boop. Do they have my Mobile One? Ah, Advanced Auto doesn't have it. Okay, I'm going to go somewhere else. But the point is that I have chosen a manufacturer that I like, right? Because for whatever reason, and that's what I'm going to use. And that it doesn't really, I'm not necessarily going to Walmart or Advanced Auto or, to Napa, CarQuest, because I think, that it's their brand. No, I'm going to anyone who sells this particular oil that I want. Now, if I chose to price shop one of those retail locations because they were offering that same, oil at a different price, that's even better, right? But I'm specifically going to that retail location because they carry that particular oil that I want to use. So here's the problem with ink. So I would say 95% of all stateside ink is someone who purchased either a 1 liter or a 1 gallon or a 5 gallon ink, and they're either taking that same ink and putting it in smaller bottles, or they're just leaving in the bottles that they came in, and they're literally putting their own sticker on it. And I don't get that. I don't get how they even get away with that. Is it because they're overseas to the United States? Like, laws don't apply for them. I mean, it'd be like me going to, Walmart and buying Sweet Baby Ray's and ripping off the label and sticking Rick Ramirez on there and set my little shop up and say, you want to buy some Rick Ramirez's barbecue sauce and it's Sweet Baby Ray's? I don't get how they get away with that. And the thing is, to me, is if like, if you didn't lie, right? I mean, come on, we know you didn't make it, right? So the problem is this: if you're on Facebook and you're in these DTF or DTG groups, you are amongst people who are in the business and the trades who are doing DTF and DTG printing, but you're also amongst these sellers, right? So the sellers from Stateside, they're protecting their supplier, right, by ripping the stickers off and saying, it's such and such brand ink, and they're saying it's their brand ink, and now you don't know where they get it from. Well, I think that's a horrible idea. Like, so I think what that's doing is that's holding your customers hostage. And when you hold a customer hostage, and I'm literally saying, like, that's exactly what you're doing. You're holding your customer hostage. And that's because that someone uses your product, it works well from them, right? And then they're scared to try anything else because they're scared that it may not work as well, or they're scared that it's even going to mess up their printer. You get some bad ink or a bad batch of ink, it can ruin your print head. You wash it one time and it's just not sticking. So you're holding your customer hostage by not telling them the truth, who makes this ink, and claim that you make it yourself. And then once someone uses it, they're scared to go to a competitor because they think like, oh, I don't know what kind of ink it is, or I don't know. And here's the thing: if you were truthful and honest, you don't have to hold your customers hostage. You can say, hey, I sell Hong Song ink. And if you like Hong Song ink, that's ink that I have. You know what I mean? And then if I ran out of white and so-and-so doesn't have it, then I can go to, like I said, with the oil, I can go to somebody else and say, hey, do you have Hong Song, white ink? Yeah, okay, I want to buy it from you. And it's a level playing field then, and who's going to give me the best price, but they're not going to tell you that. And I think that's horrible. I think, like, you're holding customers hostage. And I think that if you have a reputable name, a reputable product, you don't have to do that, at all. So that just kind of upsets me. And for me, it's funny because these people are slick. What they're doing is that you go on their website, and so I'm talking about Stateside, and you look at their DTF or DTG ink and you see the bottle, right? And then you order it, and it's not the same bottle that they sent you. Why? Because the manufacturers use the same bottles all the time. So I could look at the bottle and say, I don't care what that label says, that I know when I take the lid off is underneath that cap a paper cover, literally a paper like puck over the top for allowing the ink come out. Is it foil, the shape of the bottle, and even a print of a serial number on the bottom. So I know, okay, so-and-so's ink is actually this ink. So-and-so's ink is actually that ink. But the only way I know that is because that I've bought one of their inks. Just try it and see, well, what ink are they actually selling? Oh, damn it. I've already tried that ink. It sucks. And that was the early stages, of me, doing DTF, experimenting on different powders, different films, different inks. And I'm past those stages. Like, now I'm set in, this is the ink that I use. If I can't get it, this is my B ink. But this, and that goes with everything that I use. These are my suppliers that I'm gonna order it, and if I get in a bind, and for some reason, I'm getting my shipment late or whatever, this is who I'm gonna order my stuff from. So, yeah. So when it comes to ink, like I said, I will do a separate video just on that. Kind of going over where I get my inks from, who I would suggest that you buy, what print head I have, because that makes a big difference too on what you're going to decide. And also, do you want the runnier ink? Do you want the thicker ink? Remember I told you it makes a big difference on how that print's coming out. If it's coming out straight or if it's coming down downward direction. If your printer's coming in downward direction and you don't have a film that's more absorbent, or you don't have the thicker white, it's going to run. So those are two key points that you want to keep in mind, that depending on the type of printer that you have. Okay. So yeah, so film, powder, film, powder, and ink. You know, those are the main key components to your printer. And you know, the one thing you also have to worry about is RIP software, because no matter how expensive your printer is, no matter how good of any of the above that I just said, you know, you have to know what RIP software you're going to use. Okay, so what is RIP software? RIP software is just a software that takes, you know, let's just say you're using Photoshop or Adobe, you're using just literally with the picture, you go file print, whatever your program you're in, Notepad, you know, Word, and hit file print, it just prints to the printer, your regular desktop printer. Well, it doesn't work that way. You can't do that with a DTG or a DTF printer. So you have to have a RIP software that's taking that piece of art, you know, and communicating with the printer so that it prints it. And then it gives you different options to be able to print white, you know, and to be able to individually control your channels. So, you know, do you want 100% color? Do you want 65% white? You know, those are the different things. So I would say the most commonly used RIP software is Accurate. So you're going to hear good and bads. You're going to hear horror stories and you know, people praising them up and down. So I've been using Accurate since Accurate 7, then 9, and now 10. So I will tell you right now, if you have Accurate 9, uninstall it from your computer. You know, are there available versions of Accurate 9 that are that do not have viruses? Yes, they're far few in between. To be honest with you, if you asked me that 8 months ago, I would have said it's non-existent until the software manufacturer actually remote accessed into my computer, installed it, because we were trying to resolve a Accurate 10 issue that I finally saw, like, wow, this is a legit version of 9 that didn't, you know, auto detect a virus with my antivirus enabled. So I'm going to do a separate video on 9. I'm going to go over why I would suggest you not purchase 9. If you have Accurate 9, why I would suggest you want to install it. I'm going to actually explain to you what happened to my computer, how people were remote accessing my computer, what they were doing to my computer, how I can prove it, you know, my firewall, all this and that. So that in itself will be a separate video just of Accurate 9, why I suggest you don't use it. So to save yourself some time, if you don't have Accurate 9, don't buy it. And then Accurate 10, I'm going to also have a separate video on Accurate 10, because there's a lot of people, the problem with Accurate is that people don't even know, like, well, who makes Accurate? You know, what's the software manufacturer? It's almost impossible to find them. And when you Google it, it's going to come up with, you know, this website. It's like accurate something.com. I can't remember. And it's going to tell you, like, you know, these are the 5 sellers of the, you know, of the software, and we suggest you buy from them, blah, 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 blah. That is not the software manufacturer's website. You know, if you want, in the descriptions below, I will actually post a link to the real software manufacturer's website, but I will do a separate video on that. And the other thing is, the problem with Accurate 10 is that Accurate reminds me of Linux. Like, I have a background in help desk tech support, and I remember when they first they said we had to support Linux and Unix, and I was like, oh my god. And the reason is because that if you were to buy Windows, right, Windows is a legit version, and you go to Best Buy, Office Max, Staples, Windows 10 is Windows 10. It doesn't matter, right? Because you know you bought a legit, genuine version of Windows 10. It's going to be the same, right? When you buy Accurate, the difference in Accurate is this. So you can go to Accurate and you tell them, like, hey, I want to be a seller of Accurate. And they say, all right, will you buy, I think it's, and don't hold me to it, but in the next video on Accurate 10, I'll leave the actual specifics. But I think, let's just say it's like you have to buy a minimum of 20 versions of Accurate 10, right? And then the standard version will come with your logo. So when they open it, it'll show your logo in the right-hand corner. And the executable file out of the shortcut that's on the desktop is going to say either our name, which should say Accurate, but we can change the name to whatever you want to do, and then it'll be your logo in that. So whatever, right? And then also standard it supports, you know, these printers. It's going to support the L1800, the P600, P800, blah, 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 blah. And then if you pay additional amounts, you know, we can either add additional printers that we already have profiles built for, or you can pay us more money and we can build a profile to make it compatible with that printer. So that's the problem. So if you purchase the software from one versus the other, they're not the same at all. And then the updates, the patches, so there's so many different versions of Accurate that it's retarded. So, and then the other thing is that even though Accurate 9 was like bad in itself, that you know, was infected with viruses, and you know, was flooded out there with it, the features that it had, Accurate 10 don't. I mean, flat out, Accurate 9 works better than Accurate 10. The difference is the Accurate 9, you have virus in your computer. You know, I would love to go back to 9 and just say the hell with it. You know, and then you're going to see these other things that people are telling you, oh no, you want Accurate 10 because what it's going to do, it's going to speed boost your printer. It's going to allow it to print 40 times faster. Okay, did you have long enough time to think about that? Come on, 40 times faster. So what they're doing is they're actually changing. There's by no miracle, you know, you can have a speed boost button. There's no NOS, you know, to make your printer all of a sudden print faster. What they're doing is they're lowering the print quality. So it's like saying, oh, instead of printing at 2880 by 2880, I'm going to go to 1720 by 420. Of course, it's going to print faster. That's what they're doing. So, yeah. So if you want to learn more about Accurate, you know, that's what I've used. I've tried 2 other different RIP softwares. I didn't really like them, but I will have separate videos just on my RIPs. Like I said, this is just kind of breaking down what this series is going to be about, giving you tidbits of information, and then so that you know the direction that you want to go in this series of DTF videos, because it's going to be so large. But like I said, my real experience has been with Accurate, you know, and for some time, you know, with DTG before I did DTF. So yeah, so like I said, it was just a nightmare. So yeah, and then the other thing is too is with RIP software, there's a huge difference. I want to show this real quick. There's a huge difference when it comes to drivers. And what I mean by drivers is literally drivers, like the drivers that are written specifically for the ink, right? So in your RIP software, you're going to have a driver that would probably be a driver written specifically for Adobe or whatever, you know, Illustrator, Corel, whatever you're using. There are certain drivers that are actually written for those that software that you're using. So when it exports the ink color profiles, that it meshes well with the RIP software to make it accurate to the color profile that you built within the design software, whatever you're using, right? So that's one driver that would be specifically for the software you're using. Then there's also a driver that may be a generic driver that would be provided by the ink manufacturer. So there's a lot of these companies. You'll see you're on Facebook and you're like, hey, I printed red and it looks pink, or I printed red and it looks orange, or my yellow doesn't look right, or the green looks blue. And these people are like, oh, well, pay me $800 and I'll build you a color profile. I have this scanner that's going to go click, 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 and it's going to build it. What they're really doing is that they more or less probably already got that color profile from the ink manufacturers, and they're gonna ask you what ink you have, and they're not doing jack. They're just gonna send you the file that they've already been provided from the ink manufacturer. So could you really use that and maybe you know, get accurate? Here's the thing: if there's an ink manufacturer that's selling millions and millions of dollars of ink, Do you think, to be honest with you, that you're gonna color profile their ink better than them? I don't think so. Unless they don't give a crap and they're a crappy ink manufacturer. But if they're a reputable ink manufacturer, trust me, they have good drivers. So whoever you're buying your ink from, ask them, hey, can I have the color profile driver so that I can use it in my RIP software, and tell them what RIP software you're doing. And if they are a reputable ink seller, they should provide that to you. Okay? So I said the Photoshop, the ink, and then none. So let me show you this image. And so I'm Mexican and Native American, if you don't know. So don't get offended by me making a joke about Mexicans, because I'm a half Native American, half Mexican. But it says, there you go. See that? It says Mexican borracho weed. So it's like Mexican alcoholic weed. It's supposed to be a joke. Don't be offended or anyone get butthurt over it. The point is, okay, look. See that green? This is from my ink manufacturer's profile, the driver. See how that green looks? This is Photoshop. This is none. Look at that. You see the difference? Huge difference. So, okay, and then keep in mind too that here's a problem too with people with colors. They don't realize, like, oh, I made something and the blue looks a certain blue, like in this blue in the background, it's like a baby blue, and then I print it out, it looks like Aurora blue. Okay, so colors are different, and the colors are going to display different because it depends on your video card your graphic card that's on your computer. It depends on your monitor. I can look at this video on my computer, and this background looks baby blue. And this is on a MacBook Pro. It's too stupid much money. And I'll take the same exact video and I'll open it up and I'll play it on this HP little tiny cheapo laptop that I have that's just running on one of my DTF printers, and open it up, and that blue is going to look like a darker royal blue. And then I print it and it looks totally different. Or I look it on my cell phone on YouTube and that looks totally different. So those are what? Drivers. So it could be your monitor driver, your video card graphic driver. All those make a difference on how it displays the pixel and how it displays the color. So how you're saying on 3 different computers the color can look different, it's because of what? The driver, right? So your phone looks one way, your laptop looks one way, your other laptop or desktop looks totally different. This is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to this. Okay? So it's not a bad idea to have all 3. Because if you print something, you're like, oh, man, to be honest with you, I use all 3. Sometimes, like, I may only print this 2 inches or 3 inches big, you know, and I see how it looks, and I'm like, I don't like that color, and I'll try the other driver, and I literally, in my notebook, I have like a little cheat sheet, because I have a customer, a plumbing company, who's like, hey, I want you to print this, you know, and I print it out, and I write down used, you know, ink driver, used Photoshop driver, used no driver, and then I'll write a notes like, you know, ink driver was too yellow or whatever, so that a year from now, 2 months from now, 2 weeks from now, I don't have to remember, or I'm second guessing myself, or I'm wasting time doing a test print. I've already done the test. So, you know, there's times that I will print all 3 just to see how they look, but I intentionally printed these 3 to just kind of show you the difference in the different greens. Look at that. That is just insane. So, the one other thing I also want to mention as far as on the inks, as I mentioned, that a lot of people are ripping the labels off. The bad side of people ripping the labels off on the ink is they're ripping off the manufacture dates, okay? So you saw when I did this and how it stretches, right? It's smaller kids might use it. But so when they're ripping off the labels, they're also ripping off the manufacture date. That ink is only good for 1 year. Not 1 year from the time that you open it, 1 year from the manufacture date. So you buy this ink and you go to do what exactly I just did, and you take your white and it goes, and it just comes. Let me see if I can do something. Let's see. have one handy, but I'm going to show you what expired ink prints like. And that's one, and when I go specifically under this video, and basically what it is like it just rip apart like nothing. Or, you know, you wash it and it's either coming off, you know, people are putting on YouTube's videos on Facebook and they're like, you know, why is this coming off my shirt after the first wash? Or why is the white cracking? It's probably because your white ink's expired. And so your white ink is like your base coat, right? So white, no matter what color you're putting on, white's always behind it, right? So if your white's bad, the print's bad. So you can get away with ink normally being like 2 years old when it comes to color. I mean, I wouldn't suggest it. You know, you definitely want to use all ink within 1 year. But I think you probably wouldn't really notice a big difference, right? But when it comes to white, you'd notice a drastic difference. Either it's gonna print well or it's not gonna print well at all. I mean, it's cut and dry. So yeah, that's just something to really keep in mind. Yeah, that's just something really to keep in mind. So yeah, definitely different inks make a difference. So in that video, you know, I'm gonna really go over what inks I use and why I recommend them, what inks that I've tried, why I would say this or that, what I didn't like. So the other thing is you're gonna see. So when I told you that certain inks mesh well with each other, because I just don't want to say any names right now. But let's just say I was to go to Joe Schmo's DTF ink, and I bought his white, and I bought his color. And you think, okay, well, they're the same manufacturer, and they might not be. So you notice when you print color at 100%, on certain prints you got to back down your white a lot, because on red, you know, it like doesn't mesh well. They run, or they overlap, or they you know, go into each other. Or, you know, notice that white will make your black, you know, like a light black, or you know, gray. You know, the inks are not rejecting each other. They're kind of like, you know, mixing. That's why. So so yeah, so just because you bought your ink from the same person doesn't mean it's manufactured by the same manufacturer. So I think, like I said, I had to take a step back, because when I started this early on, and I thought I was just going to kind of jump into it right away, there was so much more questions, and I was bombarded with people just asking questions. So I think that kind of covers the basis, right? You know, on DTF. The other thing is that you want to think about, and I said this in the previous video, why are you wanting to get into DTF? Are you getting into DTF because you want to make your own garments? Are you getting into DTF because you want to sell transfers? And the reason that I'm asking you that is because if you want to sell transfers, you better buy a fast printer, because otherwise you're not going to make enough money. You know, I would say transfers sell between $2.40 to $3.50 a square. You know, a print, you know, so to be competitive in that, you better be pushing out, I don't know, 1,000 feet a day. You know, you want to make $1,000 a day, you know, and that's not profiting, you know, because I mean, yeah. So versus because here's the thing, it kind of sucks, right? Like, you buy this badass printer, you work through all the troubles, you got everything going, you print it and you give it to somebody else, and they get all the glory because their garment looks great, right? And they're buying something for you from, let's say, $3, and they're taking a $7 shirt, so now they're $10 deep, and they're selling it for $25, and they make more than you. So in order to make more than them, you need to sell 1,500, 2,000 prints. They need to sell 150. You get it? So there's nothing wrong in it. I mean, it's just, what side of the business do you want? And could you be in both? Yeah. Are most people in both? No. You know, I think they kind of focus on one or the other, and then maybe eventually they cross lines. You know, like they want to focus on themselves. You know, I think the smart thing would be to do it for yourself first. You know, to learn everything, do your own tests, and then once you really know your printer, once you really know your product, then offer it to other people. There's too many people that just right off the bat, I see all these people like, selling DTF prints. And I'm like, who the hell are you? I've never heard, on these Facebook pages, they're posting like, hey, my prints, BJF's printing company. And I'm like, who the hell are you? Not that I'm somebody special or anything, but just these forms come on, everybody knows each other. It's a small industry. And, he's already selling prints. I've seen him, post things twice, I didn't even sell anything to anyone, until it was like months and months and months of doing testing. So the other thing is this too, is that you can have a reputable seller who sells you film, powder, ink, and you can still get a bad batch. So if I'm in the middle of a run, the one thing I want to do is if I'm going to start a run, I make sure that all my inks are filled up to the top. I make sure that all my inks are shook well. Because if I top it off and I, my white was, I had only a quarter left, and now I put the white, it could look different, a variance different, because literally when you shook it, the pigment shook different. Same thing with blue or red or whatever. So if I'm going to run a big print job, I make sure that all my inks are topped off. I make sure all my inks are shooken well so that they'll look the same, because you print, I don't care what people can say. Somebody prints you 200 of some prints. Let's just say this print in the background. And then 8 months later you order it. It could be a slight different shade of red. It could be a slight different shade of blue, a variance. Why? Because the way the pigments are going, the way they shook up, it's that you can't always 100% guarantee it's going to be identical. Is it going to be close? Yes. It's like saying when you went and bought your car, right? You ordered black. You ordered a black Dodge Ram. I'm a Mopar fan. If you like Chevy, you suck. But your dad buys a Dodge Ram black, and you pull your trucks right next to each other, and they're not the same black. Anything that's mass produced, it's not always going to be identical. Is it close? Yeah. To naked eye, yes. But if you nitpick it, you might see a difference. So that's something to keep in mind too. But I think I kind of covered all the bases. Film, powder, transfers, printers, what else? RIP software. Should you go direct to the manufacturer? Should you go to supplier? I think that covers everything. So now, if you didn't know DTF, you kind of have a firm foundation, right? And then at least if you have more questions on one of these particular categories, as I start making videos specifically on that, then you can follow in that direction. If you just want to learn abroad, you can start from video 1, go all the way into the end. But thanks for watching. God bless. I appreciate everyone following me, for subscribing, for all your comments, and for all the constructive criticism. And if there's anything that I miss, anything you want me to cover, any questions that you have, of course you can leave comments you can leave comments below. If you don't feel comfortable, leaving comments, or you want to message me privately, you can most definitely email me. That's fine. And I will get back to you as well. But it's always a good idea, to be honest with you, that you comment on YouTube. And that is because that somebody else may not have the courage to ask the same question, or feel stupid asking it, and you asked it. And then, there's one of the old saying, there's never a stupid question. It's just, it's when you don't ask, it was just because you still have lack of knowledge, right? So it didn't help you. So grow a set of balls. If you got a question, just ask it. And if you're a woman, I'm sorry. Just, just ask. I promise I'll be honest. And again, like I said, I'm not a pump and dump. I 100% will not ever promote anyone's product because they've incentivized me in any sort of way through affiliate links or paying me or discounts. It's just purely based on my experience on using their products, whether it was good or bad. And I have had both. So I will definitely, like I said, go into depths on all of those. I'm also going to be reaching out to some of these American distributors that I have purchased from in the past, and ask them to do a video with me, if they will, a quote video, and kind of just after I go over my experience of them. Obviously it'd have to be a good experience, and and do a co-op video with them and just ask them questions, pick their brain, you know, why did they get into the business, you know, what are they offering, you know, just things like that. So kind of start seeing those too. And I just want you to know early off that, you know, like I said, there's no spin off to that. I'm not going to direction. I'm not a pump and dump. But again, just thanks for watching. God bless. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. You know, and watch these videos from start to finish. I need some real time. You know, if you're busy and you don't got to see my face. You don't got to see my face. You could just put the volume on and go to a new tab and keep working, whatever. You can just hear and learn and listen, you know? All right. Thanks.